Good evening, I'm Andrew Chang.
And I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Tonight, a new national plan and more promises for a path to reconciliation.
That document does not speak for me as a Nehewa woman and as a survivor.
At Issue looks at the difficult week after Kamloops.
Also tonight, the race against a rising COVID-19 variant.
We see the storm coming, and we know where it's going to land.
CBC News investigates internal complaints from Air Canada employees about the international travel of company executives.
And league judgment for an end-of-game hit.
They are taking these hits very seriously.
We'll hear from analysts, players, and fans. This is The National.
The timing is coincidental, the symbolism powerful. A week ago, a report from Kamloops relit the national reflection on residential schools. Today, the idea of reconciliation is again in the spotlight.
A new national plan in response to the tragedy of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And the date is significant. Exactly 2 years ago, an inquiry into the issues released a landmark report. And today, the Federal Pathway Report promises transformative change over several years, but it's already facing tough scrutiny. Now, the government says it designed this action plan to be a kind of living document, one that can grow and be adapted. But as Olivia Stefanovich tells us, for some of those still reeling from loss, it brings little resolution.
After 2 years of waiting for an official response, Judy Anderson watched as the National Action Plan was made public, but it brought her no closure.
With my sister, there are no leads, there's no clues.
She wants to know what happened to her sister, Shelley Mae Anderson, who disappeared in Northern Ontario more than a decade ago.
There are no investments that can bring back the lives lost or that can heal people's pain.
The Prime Minister seemed to acknowledge that, but says his government is trying to do better.
We're taking a step forward together to make the transformative change necessary.
The federal component of the action plan pledges to revitalize Indigenous languages, transform the delivery of health care, improve law enforcement training, and designate Indigenous policing an essential service. To pay for the promises, the government set aside more than $2 billion in the budget.
What reason does any Indigenous person in Canada have to trust the government?
The inquiry's chief commissioner says the commitments lack timelines and costing.
That document does not speak for me as a Nehewa woman and as a survivor.
Krista Shore was 12 years old when her mom was killed. The man who took Barbara Ann Shore's life was convicted, but not before police first blamed Shore's brother and father.
So if you ask me if police forces and RCMP should get more funds, no, they've been the big prominent piece of downplaying and constructing the violence Indigenous women and girls face.
But Shore says she finds strength in carrying the story of her mother's loss.
I'll continue to speak truth to power.
Okay, so Olivia, I guess the question here is, will we begin to see the results of this plan?
Well, Andrew, the government has already started work on some of these promises. For example, it's passed legislation to reform the child welfare system and protect Indigenous languages. But much of the work in the action plan will take longer, and the government is committing to annual progress reports. But for the people who continue to gather here at this memorial for Kamloops, laying shoes, toys, and flowers, that isn't good enough. They want action now. Andrew?
Okay, Olivia Stefanovich, thank you.
So let's bring in Chief Political Correspondent Rosie Barton. So Rosie, how significant is what happened today to the promise of reconciliation?
You know, it's a step forward. It's part of the overall process, but it comes after a pretty difficult week for the government where there have been questions raised about the government's commitment to reconciliation and the speed at which it's happening. It can certainly point to this plan to make the case that it's committed to doing the work necessary now and into the future. But what happened this week in Kamloops, Adrienne, really seemed to focus the public's mind on truth and reconciliation, on holding the government to account for promises made. The Liberals may have also set expectations just too high, given the complexity of some of these issues, like improving First Nations policing, eliminating racism in the healthcare system, for instance.
And so what about the potential political fallout? They are surely thinking along those lines.
For sure, because the Prime Minister has said this is the most important relationship for him, for the government, for the country. A lot of people voted for this government to support these goals. Remember, there was a record turnout of Indigenous voters in 2015 that brought the Liberals a majority in part. So progress is going to need to be better explained. Confidence that the government is making progress is going to be vital for those voters. We're going to talk about all of that coming up on At Issue.
All right, it's important. Rosie, thank you.
Thanks.
Now, one more note before we move to other news. The RCMP says it has opened a file on the Kamloops residential school discovery, but it says the band remains the lead at this time, and it will consult on any next steps. And earlier today, a related call from the chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
We need to ensure that there is an independent study that is done into that question of those burial sites and where they are and what the numbers are going to tell us.
Retired Senator Murray Sinclair told the Indigenous and Northern Affairs Committee today that while the government should not run any such probe, Parliament should have an oversight role.
In the House of Commons today, MPs criticized Air Canada for paying millions in executive bonuses during the pandemic.
Que cette Chambre dénonce la décision.
MPs gave unanimous support to a motion condemning Air Canada's board for approving $20 million in executive bonuses. The company says it paid out $10 million. During the pandemic, it negotiated a federal aid package of nearly $6 billion and laid off employees.
Well, Canada's biggest airline is also facing internal criticism. CBC News has learned that some employees have complained about the travel of some executives. Aaron Saltzman tells us more.
Already pounded by the pandemic, Air Canada is now dealing with internal complaints about the pandemic travel of some of its top executives. One criticized Vice President Lisa Pearce, an American living in Toronto, after she posted pictures on a company message board of her getting her second vaccine shot in the U.S. before some frontline workers had access to their first. A second accuses Vice President Mark Gallardo, a Canadian living in Montreal, of vacationing in Florida while Quebec was under lockdown orders. Pandemic-related travel by another senior Air Canada executive is also raising concern within the organization. Senior Vice President Mark Nasser traveled to Dubai last December and flew to Florida on business this past April, where he too was vaccinated. None of this, of course, was illegal, but it was contrary to government pleas to stay home. CBC News has also obtained part of a recording of a virtual staff meeting, during which Nasser said he had used rapid testing kits to screen dinner guests.
We were able to secure a box of at-home tests 6 weeks ago, and we've used it for dinner parties.
Provincial guidelines at the time did not allow visits to other households. On the use of test kits, Air Canada said our information is incorrect. In a statement, the airline says it doesn't comment on the private activities of its employees. It points out anyone in Canada can travel outside the country and says it has been very consistent in its position since the pandemic began that with appropriate precautions and by applying science-based measures, travel is safe.
Traveling during a pandemic is very problematic.
This epidemiologist says even with modern air filtration systems, it's still possible to spread the virus on the plane, in the terminal, and traveling to and from the airport.
The concept of going to the United States to get vaccinated doesn't really trouble me. Getting on an airplane when you don't absolutely have to does.
Seems it also troubles some Air Canada employees as well. Aaron Saltzman, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's turn to the COVID-19 story now and to new worries about a recent variant. It is taking hold in Ontario, where more second doses seem to be the best hope of heading it off. Vicadopia tells us what that means for the province's vaccination strategy.
The future of rapid mass vaccination opened in Brampton today as the city kicks its efforts into high gear. And for Peel Region, the stakes couldn't be higher.
We see the storm coming, and we know where it's going to land. It is going to land in the region of Peel within the next few weeks.
That storm is the Delta variant, how scientists now refer to the coronavirus variant that first surfaced in India. Health officials estimate it now makes up almost a quarter of all COVID cases in Ontario. But in Peel, the Delta variant is predicted to take over as the dominant strain as early as the end of the month and could spread elsewhere. Here's why that's worrying. Delta is more transmissible, spreading more rapidly than the current dominant strain. There's early evidence it may be more virulent, leading to more severe illness. And a UK study found a single dose of either the Pfizer or AstraZeneca vaccine is only 33% effective against illness, which is less effective than with other variants.
So if it does gain a foothold and if it does start circulating more broadly, then we could expect to see that translate into increased risk of hospitalization.
Morning, ladies.
In the UK, where the Delta variant is surging, second shots are an urgent priority because 2 doses have been shown to be more than 90% effective against the variant. Ontario needs to do the same.
And that's absolutely doable. We can up our game there by just going in more rapidly with second doses, and we're absolutely able to keep this under control this time.
The provincial government is now considering opening up second shots to everyone.
To make sure that anybody who wants to receive their second vaccine can get one as quickly as possible.
Because losing control now could undo so much progress. Vic Adopia, CBC News, Toronto.
And Quebec is cutting wait times for that second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine in half, from 16 to 8 weeks.
It's clear that one dose is not protecting long enough. If they really want to be protected and have a good fall and we don't have to go back to epidemics, they must get a second dose.
Quebecers will be able to reschedule their second dose as early as Monday. The province hopes to have 75% of the adult population fully vaccinated before the end of August.
Well, today in hard-hit Manitoba, the government began reaching out to a community wary of vaccines. The province is home to about 200,000 Mennonites, and many have been slow to get a shot. Karen Pauls looks at efforts to change that.
I'm one of those people that was totally against vaccinating.
But 33-year-old Katerina Giesbrecht had a change of heart after she was hospitalized with COVID-19 and put on a ventilator.
I thought literally I was going to die because of the pneumonia and the COVID in my lungs. And when your lungs are so full and they're popping, you can't breathe. It's very, very scary.
Giesbrecht lives in a Mennonite town in a part of the province with low rates of vaccination, as low as 13%, compared to the provincial average of 63%.
There have been a few patients that, even at death's door and on their deathbeds, are in denial.
This doctor says almost none of his patients have been vaccinated. Some denied the pandemic exists, even as they were dying of COVID-19.
There's this idea that we are somehow colluding with a conspiracy that this virus is not real.
We've all missed traveling to see the people and the places we love.
Today, the province unveiled a new ad campaign to convince wary Manitobans to get the shot, as well a grant program for groups like churches or sports teams to encourage vaccination.
We accept and understand that. This is your body, and it's your right to make that decision. But it's our obligation to encourage you to make the one that's best for you, and best, I think, for Manitoba and for Canada as well.
Experts say Mennonites have a history of persecution by the authorities, so it's crucial to recruit trusted local leaders to use their influence.
There's a strong emphasis in our culture on making it a private decision. It's my decision. I made it. I don't need to, preach about it. And in fact, it might be considered rude to tell my neighbor and my sister and my cousin that I've done this. And actually, we need to get over that.
Katerina Giesbrecht is rolling up her sleeve for the shot next week, hoping her example will nudge others off the fence. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, as Manitoba pushes for broader vaccine uptake, it's also moved to keep many of the province's students at home for the remainder of the school year.
Test positivity rates and the number of cases in hospital and ICU are still too high to broadly reopen schools in certain parts of the province.
Students in hotspots like Winnipeg, Brandon, and Garden Valley will remain at home. However, small groups of students will be able to return to classrooms for certain controlled meetings with teachers.
The commission investigating last year's murderous rampage in Nova Scotia today called on Halifax-based Frank Magazine to take down leaked recordings it posted of 3 911 calls. Those calls were placed on the night a man killed 13 people in the township of Portapique while masquerading as an RCMP officer. One call was from a 12-year-old boy who witnessed his parents dying. Nova Scotia RCMP said today, given the heartbreaking effect on victims' families and on our employees, we are publicly condemning the publication of the audio recordings. The killer took 22 lives over 2 days before police shot him dead at a gas station. Now, as part of the killer's masquerade, his car was decked out to resemble an RCMP cruiser. More than a year later, CBC News discovered detailed instructions on placing those markings and decals were still readily available online. That was until CBC's Thomas Daigle started asking questions.
RCMP decals like this are meant to guarantee that a police car is authentic, but they played a devastating part in the massacre. Before the gunman went on his rampage, court documents show he did research online and found a federal government website offering instructions on how to create those RCMP decals.
That should only be made available on a need-to-know basis by companies that have a security clearance.
These documents are from past calls for tenders when the RCMP was looking for decal suppliers. But even more than a year after the attacks, we found the files still readily available online.
They offered details like the precise colors and measurements of the decals, not to mention the material needed.
I will tell you I'm very concerned that any individual intent on committing criminal acts could gain access to the decals for an RCMP vehicle or the uniform of an RCMP officer.
That was last year. This week, Blair's spokesperson said the design and detail of RCMP vehicle decals have not previously been considered classified or in need of safeguarding. Quebec and Ontario police both say they require a security clearance when putting decals out for tender, while those federal documents state they did not include provisions for security.
There's no excuse that why that's still available.
Tammy Oliver McCurdy lost her niece Emily, sister Jolene, and brother-in-law Aaron.
This actually puts people at risk. So I don't know why over 13 months later we're talking about this. It's sad, it's disappointing.
After CBC News inquired, the RCMP said it would remove the files and review procurement posting procedures for items that could be used to impersonate an officer. Measures that could help prevent this from happening again. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, New Brunswick has launched an investigation into the cause of a brain illness that has affected nearly 50 people and taken 6 lives.
We must examine any and all possibilities, and as those possibilities evolve, we'll certainly share them with you.
A 9-person committee will oversee the investigation. Cases have been found in patients ranging from 18 to 86 years old. Symptoms include rapidly progressing dementia, muscle spasms, memory loss, and hallucinations.
Montreal took Game 1 in last night's series opener against Winnipeg, but today the talk of the town was what happened in the game's final minute. A vicious hit left a Montreal player flat on the ice with a concussion. Cameron McIntosh looks at the replay, the reaction, and the judgment.
Winnipeg's first game with fans in the stands, final score notwithstanding, an ending no one wanted to see.
Canadians are going to clear Evans.
Watch Canadians forward Jake Evans wrapping the puck around the empty net, then
Shifley flattens Evans, who hasn't got up.
Jets top center Mark Shifley now suspended 4 games. Evans, who left on a stretcher, now day-to-day with a concussion.
He gave a thumbs up as he was wheeled off the ice, so I'm glad about that. It was a pretty tense time in the arena for sure.
From another angle, Evans is in the clear but vulnerable with his head down. He scores just before Shifley at high speed makes the hit. No attempt to play the puck.
My initial thoughts were it seemed like a clean hit.
Hockey Night in Canada analyst Parminder Singh says on second look, it's the contact with Evans' head, which is down, that the NHL really wants out of the game.
They are taking these hits very seriously. Forget about the misfortunes around the hit, but the fact of the matter is that the player was hit in the head, was taken off on a stretcher.
Many Montreal fans wanted an even tougher suspension. Among ex-NHLers, plenty of debate all day.
I don't want to see Mark Shifley get suspended, but the right call was made on the ice. A suspension is coming, deservedly so.
If he hopped up and celebrated the goal in the corner,
nothing would be discussed.
It's certainly amped up tension in the series. Earlier today, Scheifele's teammates insisted the hit was clean. But
if that had happened to one of our players, I think it'd be, your hands would be up.
We all know what happened last night, and the best way to get back at them for that is to win the series.
Montreal leads 1-0. Game 2 goes tomorrow without Scheifele, and most likely without Evans as well. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, New York City has a new attraction, a COVID-19 vaccine.
I'm from Ecuador, from Quito.
We're coming from Colombia, from Bogota.
They've come from around the world to get their shots. Up next, the trouble with vaccine tourism.
After renewed calls for action and new promises for change, is this a turning point for reconciliation in Canada? At Issue is here.
And the Asian comedians determined to change the punchline.
And I felt like they were just laughing at me.
We're back in 2.
They're not trying to drive cars through here. They're trying to delete history. But we will not let them delete this history.
Well, activists gathered at George Floyd Square in Minneapolis today as crews worked to reopen the intersection where Floyd was murdered by a police officer just over a year ago. City officials hoped the effort would let traffic flow through the intersection again, but demonstrators called the unannounced action disrespectful.
The White House today announced it will share 80 million unused COVID vaccines with the rest of the world by the end of this month.
It recognizes our closest neighbors, Canada and Mexico, which received our first shared vaccines.
So the U.S. is pledging 25 million doses to start. About a quarter will go to Canada, Mexico, and other close allies, with some kept for emergencies. The other 3/4 will be going to the United Nations COVAX program. Now, some people from abroad are not waiting for U.S. donated doses to come to them. Instead, they are traveling to the United States, not just to sightsee, but to get their shots. Chris Reyes looks at vaccine tourism and why not everyone is putting out the welcome mat.
TKTS in Times Square used to be the spot to get the hottest ticket in town. But with shows shut down, these days you're more likely to find tourists lined up across the street.
Have you vaccinated already?
The hot ticket here? The one-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Just showed our passports and we had to fill in a form and that's it.
Almost everyone we met outside this clinic traveled to New York for the vaccine.
In Colombia, we have to wait a lot to get vaccinated, so I guess we choose to come to New York.
Long waits for shots in other countries have fueled a new travel trend, vaccine tourism.
We want to enjoy everything that's great about this city.
Mayor Bill de Blasio has been encouraging it for weeks, putting clinics like this one in popular tourist sites. This is an ad from a Thai travel agency selling so-called health tours to other parts of the U.S. The packages aren't cheap.
We're talking something around, over $2,000 going up to $4,000 per person for a couple.
Tourists are obviously thrilled to be getting their free shot right here in Times Square, but some are troubled by the trend.
So it's selfishness to use vaccines for tourism. It would be one thing if there were enough doses in every country to end the pandemic, but there isn't.
They're getting vaccinated.
For local New Yorker Ronald Lugo, he's all for vaccines for visitors because of his daily reality.
Those from the city want to know that, people coming in, we're going to be protected.
For Gurma, vaccine tourism is too short-sighted.
There is no tourism recovery for all unless there is vaccine equity.
Facing that challenge will be up to a small group of rich countries. According to the WHO, they hold almost 90% of the world's vaccine supply. Until then, the reality is this: tourists will go wherever they are welcome. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Well, ahead tonight, finding inspiration in an insect invasion. They're climbing mountains, even getting their own vaccines. We're going to hear from the photographer behind it all in tonight's moment.
Next, though, Rosie is here with that issue.
Hey, Adrian. Tonight, we are obviously going to talk more about the politics of reconciliation.
To truly heal these wounds, we must first acknowledge the truth.
So how does the truth turn into political action? Plus, how current political leaders are reconciling with history, the wrongs of the past. Chantel, Andrew, Althea, and Karen Pugliese will join me after the break.
truly heal these wounds, we must first acknowledge the truth. And not only about residential schools, but about so many injustices, both past and present, that Indigenous peoples face.
Canadian families are grieving the loss of children, but what they haven't seen yet is swift action. Will the government commit to delivering the plan so that families can begin the process of healing?
This is a moment that demands action, that demands justice.
It's been a week of political responses and calls for action after up to 215 remains of children were found at the site of a former residential school in Kamloops. Today, the federal government released its response to the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. So does any of this mark a turning point for reconciliation? It's Thursday, and I'm here with At Issue, Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, Althea Raj, and Karen Pugliese joins us this week too. She's an assistant professor at Ryerson School of Journalism, former executive director of news and current affairs at APTN. Good to see everybody. Chantal, I'm going to start with you. Do you think that what we have talked about, what has touched the nation this week, is perhaps a political turning point because of, a sense of emotion and urgency that Canadians might be feeling?
I'm guessing it depends on how long it can be sustained. It's not that politicians have not liked to talk a good game on the issue, but it is a fact of political life, and I've covered politics for a long time, that while Canadians will tell pollsters that it really matters to them that parties talk that talk, they do not punish parties for not walking the talk when it comes to elections. So if the feelings within the electorate do translate into accountability in the ballot box, yes, it will make a difference. But otherwise, I'm not that optimistic.
Karen, watching it from where you are, does it feel in any way different, and that there may be, different pressure placed on politicians to respond differently?
It feels like a lot of things have been a little different lately. I think since the murder of George Floyd, it's really interesting that we had this 2015 Royal Commission. Sorry, I'm thinking about the Royal Commission, but I mean the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And there just really wasn't much out of it. There wasn't really much out for a long time in reaction to the missing and murdered women's inquiry. And I guess we'll talk about that later. But there was this huge force that came out of Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matter suddenly created space to talk about Indigenous issues in Canada. And that's been going on, I think, really for about a year. And it's that feeling that Indigenous people are not having this conversation alone anymore that matters, that other people are joining in.
That's interesting. Andrew, it's been 6 years since the TRC's 94 calls to actions. We heard there in some of the clips from opposition leaders, we need quick action, swift action. I don't know, when you read those calls to action, whether anything could be done swiftly, but how do you assess how the government's doing or done so far?
Well, in the days since this latest evidence of the atrocities that took place in the residential schools, it was actually a little slow to react. I think they were a little bit off their game there. It took them a few days to really realize the enormity with which this had landed in the general public, and particularly amongst Indigenous Canadians. So they were a little slow. But I do think this has turned up the heat. I don't know whether I describe it as a turning point, but I think it's added some impetus to the existing thing, part of which has just been described, that there's been I think a collective opening of eyes across North America from people who might previously have said in response to issues like this, yeah, but I think are more inclined to say, yeah, I'm listening, than they might have in the past.
How much of it, Althea, do you think is about the government's own sort of setting of expectations that Justin Trudeau started, way back before 2015?
In some ways, he, I guess, has followed he is following through on, or he is seeing the consequences of his very quick action. So I think what you're referring to is even before the 2015 election, the Liberal leader promised that he was going to enact all the 94 recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Never mind that not all 94 had to do with the federal government, but he made that pledge. And I think the expectation was that the Liberal government was going to move a lot faster. And frankly, when you heard things like no relationship is more important to me than the relationship with Canada's Indigenous people, you can't blame the public and Indigenous Canadians for thinking that change was going to come a lot faster. And in the first few months of that government, it seemed like it was. You know, he went to the United Nations. He declared that the UN Declaration on the Right of Indigenous People was going to be enshrined in Canadian law. That bill actually just passed last Wednesday. And then it kind of, you know, other priorities replaced it. There was Donald Trump, and there was NAFTA, and then there was COVID. But just in the last week, since the news of this discovery emerged last Thursday, on Friday, the MPs all agreed to pass 2 bills, basically, that dealt with Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendations. So now there's a national day, basically a holiday in September marking reconciliation. There will be a change in the oath of citizenship. So those were 2 things that happened very quickly. The government could have moved on them, but it chose not to make them a priority.
Chantal, you went in there.
I believe those 2 bills should be commended for having passed unanimously, but they amount to a lot of light lifting. There's not a lot of heavy lifting involved in declaring a day of remembrance. And possibly the events of this week bring us closer to a Canadian consensus, i.e. That if we change governments, possibly the Conservatives would build on what the Liberals have been trying to do. But that being said, I do blame the public. It doesn't take very long for any government to discover, including this one, that there is no penalty for not delivering, that Canadians are quite willing to partake in the grief this week, but that they don't exact from parties and leaders real action. And if you are Indigenous voters, you do know that while your vote matters, it's not going to swing an election. So talk is cheap, and talk is being cheap on the part of voters.
Though I will say, Karen, in 2015, Indigenous voters turned out in record numbers, and they voted against Stephen Harper and in some ways for Justin Trudeau. So they may not swing an election.
But they didn't swing the election.
No, they didn't swing the election. But I think that is an important point, Karen. Like how much of this falls on voters to demand change on these issues?
Here's what it comes down to: the issues of residential schools, and I think there's a greater understanding of this now when you talk about colonialism and systemic racism. People are starting to understand more than they have in the past that the system of education that we have now for First Nations, especially in cases where there are no high schools and students have to leave their home and go hundreds of miles away from their family to be educated once again in a language that's not their own, a culture that's not their own, and live with families that's not their own, that's a continuation of that system. And so it seems like when we used to have these conversations, we didn't have words for them. Or if we said something like systemic racism, it just sounded so radical. It sounded like something, no, that doesn't really exist here in Canada. But it's starting to become part of the mainstream conversation. The question is always, these things are, I think they're more expensive than they are complicated.
Yeah.
So that's the question.
Andrew, to Chantal's point about how this sort of may set a bar, and that would be the case with the plan we even saw today, the action plan on MMIWG today, about this how sort of sets a bar or a starting point for other political parties or other governments moving forward. Do you think that's the case?
I can't see how it wouldn't be. There is an expectation now that we have to deal with this. I agree with Chantal that the public is oftentimes behind on this. Sometimes the public leader is ahead of their leaders, sometimes they're behind. But it is the job of leaders not just to respond to what is already on the public's mind, but to put things in front of them, to make them care about things if they're important enough. And this is an issue in which, frankly, the honor of the country is at stake. This is a terrible black mark on our collective conscience that we have to deal with. And if we don't, then we lose not only the chance of reconciliation, our moral standing.
30 seconds to you, Althea.
I think there are ways the government can signal to the public that this is an issue that it cares about. And some of them are found in the calls to justice, and they can take some of the recommendations, even in the action report that was tabled today, to signal that they are taking these matters seriously, that they're a point person that will drive the fulfillment of these recommendations, that this is going to be a lens through which it sees everything. But we haven't heard that.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with another round of At Issue. We're going to talk a little bit about this.
John Macdonald was an imperfect man, but was still a great leader.
This is another part of the conversations around political leaders and our history are playing out. We'll tackle that next.
If we want to get into canceling every figure in our history who took positions on issues at the time that we now judge harshly and rightly in historical retrospective, but if that's the new standard, then I think almost the entire founding leadership of our country gets canceled.
Jason Kenney defending, in some ways, Canada's first Prime Minister this week after he was asked about a Calgary school removing John A. Macdonald's name because of his legacy and his role in the creation of residential schools. The Alberta Premier also penned an op-ed in the National Post with a similar message. So how should we handle all of that? How does that fit into the conversation around reconciliation? Chantal, Andrew, Althea, and Karen back for one more round of At Issue. Karen, I also want to start by saying you were part of the Indigenous faculty at Ryerson that signed a public letter calling for the school to be renamed and remove the statue of Egerton Ryerson, who was also an architect of the residential school system. So maybe I'll start with you because of that. How much of that part of the conversation is central to reconciliation in terms of, do we get rid of things? Do we accept things? Do we move on? What are your views on that?
Jason Kenney is calling it cancel culture. It's not cancel culture. We're not canceling anything. What we're saying is, who do we honor in our society and who do we hold up? Nobody's taking anybody out of the history books. And in fact, by taking down some of these statues, you're actually making history, not erasing history. And so, yes, it is an act of reconciliation to start thinking, really, if you want to honor somebody who had such an impact for centuries, like Sir John A. Macdonald did, upon Indigenous people.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of the other side of the reconciliation conversation, Andrew. I don't know, and we've had moments of it, and now it seems to have returned. What do you make of where that has to go?
Well, I'm sympathetic to Jason Kenney's position generally, that I think as a general proposition, we should be looking at the whole of a person's record, not just the worst thing they did. But I think we have to recognize the context here, and the context is this is a singular event. This is the worst thing in our history, by far. Not just in the scale and the severity of it, but the duration of it. The fact that it went on for 100 or more years, the fact that it only really stopped a couple of decades ago, and the fact that we're living with the legacy of it today. So when you look at that in that context, it seems to me it's a different kettle of fish, that it is asking a lot. And it is, I think the point is that it's not that you're pinning the blame for this on that one person or those few people. I think it's more an act of, because Sir John A. stands for the country in a way, I think it's more an act of accepting blame generally.
Althea?
I think what people are trying to do is to say, who do we want to honor and celebrate? And also, how do we want our history to be remembered? And to Andrew's point as well, all these leaders are multifaceted. They may have done great things, but they also did horrible, horrific things that should be explained. And I think that we can use the statues to explain that history as well, to use them as an education about the things that they did that, we are impressed by, but also the things that are a dark mark on their history, on our history, and what we can learn from that.
Last word to you, Chantal.
I'm with Andrew. This isn't there were black marks, but everything else kind of saves it kind of thing. We do give statues to people to honor them. Suppose for 1 second that we start, as we, I believe, are going to be doing and are doing, to teach history in a different way in this country. What will our kids and our grandkids ask of us when they see statues of Sir John A. Macdonald? And this isn't just about racist views, it is about the creation of a system. What country elevates people who put systems like that in place to the place of honor that is a statue in a public place.
Really thoughtful conversation tonight. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Andrew, Chantal, Althea, and Karen. Now let's go back to Andrew and Adrian in Toronto.
Well, after decades of stereotypes and accents, Asian comedians are changing the punchline.
Felt like they were just laughing at me.
The moment that changed everything for one young comedian, next.
I'm Elaine Chow, in for Jamie Poisson. Tomorrow on CBC's Daily News podcast Front Burner, Truth and Reconciliation Commissioner Marie Wilson on what action is needed after the discovery of unmarked graves at a former residential school in Kamloops. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, there's a new generation of Asian comics changing the landscape of what's funny. No more silly voices and stereotypes. The humor is in the telling of their own stories. And as Eli Glasner shows us who they're telling those stories to.
Thank you for coming. I'll see you in hell.
For years, comedy had a crutch. Asian accents were a source for easy and lazy laughs.
My uncle in Beijing, he's a very corrupt.
Even from a supposedly progressive comedian such as Rosie O'Donnell, who surprised culture writer Naveen Kumar during a stand-up show.
She started her bit by saying, "I'm sorry for if there are any Indians in the room."
At which point she told a story about a doctor.
She puts on this sort of broad Indian accent and, that's sort of what gets the room laughing.
Yo, go, 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 go. Even Asian comics have done it, such as Canadian Anto Chan, who regrets his earlier material relied on stereotypes.
Because we knew that the audiences were usually white audiences that were really excited to hear a powerful Asian voice joke about stuff that they've already know the punchline of.
But when Chan just telling the audience he was Chinese became the punchline, it was a wake-up call.
And I felt like they were just laughing at me. And this moment changed my entire perception of like what it was that I was doing on stage.
I love when people walk up to you and just guess your race.
Now Chan's comedy and the stand-up scene itself is evolving.
This evolution into having diverse audiences and being able to share our like true stories, that's something that I really believe.
What's also changing are Asian Americans speaking out, protesting violence and racism.
I think in terms of moving forward, the momentum is in the numbers.
Number one, don't ask me where I'm really from.
Karen Chi is part of that. As one of two Asian writers on Seth Meyers' show, she's excited about the new opportunities.
We're making more shows. I think as long as you just keep that door open and let more people tell stories sort of organically, you'll get to see a lot of different kinds of them.
An era where the laughs come from real stories and backgrounds, not just differences. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
Next on The National, up close and personal with cicadas. Why this photographer chooses insects as her inspiration. It's weird. Our moment is next. These two little guys are cicadas, and although they have not gone very far, they have been on many adventures, all through the lens of a Virginia photographer. So this is a crazy year for cicadas in the United States. Trillions of them are emerging after 17 years underground. They are noisy and messy and annoying, and yet they are also an inspiration for the photographer. And tonight, this is our moment.
There they are. Yay. I have a pretty silly sense of humor, and I've always loved insects. I learned pretty quickly that no one shared my love of them. The idea to put cicadas in silly sets came out of my kids. The band is here. When they saw the first cicada emerge, they were not impressed at all. So I gave the cicadas like ride in a fire truck, and my son was like so amused, and he was a convert like right away. I've learned that cicadas hate doing gymnastics. I'm used to working with very fast-moving, squirmy individuals, kids. That they usually don't crawl out of the set, like cicadas fly off. Like, I don't, sedate them. I don't inconvenience them. I just kind of play with them. I never hurt them. They all opted for the one-shot deal. Nature is pretty awesome. And you get a macro lens and you look at them and learn so much about stuff that's like right in front of you that you never realized was there.
Well, that requires a certain amount of imagination. I gotta say right now. But I loved seeing the behind-the-scenes footage there. The final products are great, but I think it's hilarious.
She's deeply dedicated to this, and I'm sure the neighborhood kids think she's pretty cool. And if you watch that tape, when she was speaking every now and then, you could hear this faint sound in the background. The cicadas are just shouting all the time.
Right.
More to come on that a little bit later. That is the National for June the 3rd. Good night.
Good night.